Okay, so let's continue. I just minimized all these just to give us a little bit more room. So I'm just showing you, I'm just collapsing these here. We're still programming the ball here in this video. I'm just collapsing these just to give us a little bit more room. So the last one we had was the collide with paddle rule. Okay, and we'll just show you what that looks like just to be sure. Okay, all right. And so now we're going to add a new condition here, and it's the attribute condition. I'm just going to take that and drag that underneath the paddle rule here, so we've got that. Okay, and we're going to just in here in the blue area here, let's just call that, we're going to destroy if near ground rule. All right, basically what we're saying is we want the ball to be destroyed if it's anywhere near, if it hits the ground, passes the ground area. Okay, so when all the following are happening, that's fine. So if, let's go ahead and hit the down arrow next to here, attributes, and we want to do self, which is the ball's position, and we want it the Y position, right? Because it's the up and down. So if the ball gets past a certain point, we want it to be destroyed. So if so that's the Y position, that's fine. So this is good. So if self.position.y, now it says it's equal to, let's make that less than. Okay, if we click this down arrow here, less than. If it's less than a certain amount of pixels here, let's say if it goes lower than, let's say, about 30 pixels, then we just want it to be destroyed. So let's say 30 pixels here. Okay. All right. Then we want a couple of things to happen. So in the do section, we're going to be putting some things in the do section. And the else section won't have anything. All right. There's also an else section when you have a condition. So we won't, else will be empty. So you don't have to worry about that. But in the do section, we've got two things we're going to bring in here. Okay. So first, let's bring in a change attribute. Okay. Now, we're going to have to create a new variable, though, but let's bring in the change attribute first. So we have everything in place. So change in to make sure you drag it under the do section here. Okay. So we're going to be setting a variable here to 0. All right, but we're not there yet. And then we also want to bring in the destroy action. We'll drop that right under there. Okay, so basically the key thing to understand is if the position of the ball, the Y position, right, the Y, the up and down Y axis position is less than 30 pixels, then what we wanted to do is we wanted to, in the do section, we definitely wanted to destroy. We wanted to destroy the actor. Okay. But we also have a variable that we're going to have to contend with here. So we want to create a new game level attribute called ball on screen. It says, well, is the ball on the screen? And if so, then we want certain things to happen. Okay, so let's go to the game section here, and we're going to say we're going to add a game level attribute. Okay, and what we want to do in that game level attribute, we want to, while we're here, let's go ahead and just add a few different game variables or attributes. So one is going to be the game score, because eventually we're going to want to, let's create that as an integer. Okay, so let's call that game score. Okay, so we're just setting this up here, game score, hit enter, and that's an integer, that's fine. Okay, and also let's go ahead and add another attribute, and that's going to also be an integer, and we're going to call that bricks on screen. Okay, but this time what we're going to say for bricks on screen, let's make that 21. Okay, you can change this number if you want to make things interesting later on. You can actually do it within the programming, but that's what we're going to call it. We're going to have another variable called, or attribute called, and this one's going to be a Boolean. So Boolean returns a yes or no value. And so that is going to be called ball on screen question mark. So is the ball on the screen? Question mark, and it's a Boolean. Okay. And we're also going to create another one called paddle velocity offset. That one's going to be a real value. Okay, so paddle velocity offset. Okay. I think that should do it in terms of variables, okay, at the game level. All right, so now we can return, we were looking at the actor. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to set the game ball on screen, that variable that we just created at the game level. This is the ball on screen. We want to set that in a certain way. Okay, so what we're going to do is set that to false. Okay, so attributes game level is the ball on the screen. Okay, and we're going to set that to false. 0 is false. Okay, all right, and that covers this rule here. That covers this rule here, the destroy if near ground rule. That's pretty much everything we have covered there. That's fine. So I'm going to minimize that one. Okay, and we're going to create another rule here, also conditional. Bring that there, and we're going to call this one rule to fix horizontal ball jam. Okay, so so we want to bring in the collision rule. When we bring that in, you bring it right down here in the do section. Okay, let's call this, we don't really need to call that anything for now. Okay, so when actor overrides, it collides with actor of, or we want to change the actor of type to the tag, and when it collides with any bounceable object, all right, we want it to do something, and basically want to change the attributes here. So we want to change the attribute of the linear velocity Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Attributes, self, motion, linear velocity of y. Familiar with that? Okay, then we're going to bring in a random function. So we want to randomly sort of bounce off again. So we're kind of going back to what we did before. We're going to go to functions, look for the random function. Sorry, I did that too many times. So it should just be random open parentheses minimum comma max close parentheses. Okay, inside of that, the first we're going to replace the min with 70 is our min, and our max is 120. Okay, and we're going to multiply that by -1. Put the -1 in parentheses. Okay, and we want take that to the, we want to this is the caret top. This is, I'm holding the shift key and the number 6 to get this. And that sort of makes this the next part an exponent. So random, open parentheses, random. And then we're going to put in another, put the minimum as 1, maximum as 2, and add another close parentheses. Okay? So just, pause the video, make sure you have this correctly done. Check, and so that takes care of that. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of math involved. Okay, and I don't expect you to know all the math, but we're giving you a basic idea of the randomness, motion, linear velocity, those things. And there's nothing in the else section in this code, so don't have to worry about that for these. Okay. Now the last part of this is the game over section. Okay. So we can actually minimize some of this here, this level of code, and we're going to add a game over rule or condition. Okay, let's go to here. Let's drop that here. We're going to bring in the attribute. Okay, this attribute here. And well, basically what we're going to say here is when there's no more bricks on the screen, the game is over, right? So at the game level, we need to bring in, this is the attribute that we created, bricks on screen. Remember, we had set that to 21. If we go over here, we set that to 21. So the idea is when there's no more bricks on the screen, that value should be down to 0. So when some bricks on the screen is 0, then we want the game to be over. So how are we going to determine, tell the game that the game is over? So at that point, we want to destroy the actor. So, and the actor, remember, we are working on the ball here. So at this point, when there's no more bricks on the screen, we want to destroy that actor. We want to destroy the ball. So let's go find destroy. There's destroy action, and that's what we're going to put in the do section of the program. Okay, and so that should work. So let's hit the play button, go ahead and test this out, see what we get. Okay, so there it is. So you can see it's bouncing. You can see things need a little work, but let's reset that so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so we're not done, still a little shaky, but it's working. Okay, so we'll continue programming the game. We'll see you in the next video.